I was like, get the streaming service $35 instead of the $300.
So we got about a minute to go. Glad to see you two have made up, that you're back together. Yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah.
I'd like to call this meeting here at Newark City Council to order August 1st, 2022. Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Marmy?
Present.
Mr. Rath?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Barker?
Here.
Ms. Blind? Here. Mr. Harris?
Here.
Ms. Hollinger? Mr. Hauser?
Here.
Mr. Labutus?
Here.
Mr. Lang?
Present.
We have 9 here who are present this evening. Next on the agenda, we have the invocation by Mr. Hauser. If you please stand.
Let's pray. Lord, I want to first thank you for all the ways you've blessed us in this city. I pray that you would watch out for all of our safety forces, our firefighters and police officers out there protecting and serving us. Also pray that you'd watch over our proceedings tonight and the operations of our government, just so that we could serve the people in all these names we pray.
Amen.
Please remain standing and join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's time for council to discuss anything pertaining to the agenda tonight. Do we have anything, Mr. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd make a motion to excuse Mrs. Hollinger.
Motion by Mr. Martin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. Anything else for comments? Okay. We have the minutes of our July 18, 2022 meeting. A motion to approve those. Motion by Mr. Labutus.
Second.
Second by Mr. Barker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sign. That passes. We have no appointments this evening. We have 2 reports from standing committees, one from finance and one from service. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We have no reports from city officials tonight, and we have 1 communication from Trish Perry, the 8th Annual Overdose Awareness Day Rally, August 31st, 5 to 7 p.m. at the Canal Market. Without objection, that'll be received and filed. Next this evening, we have a couple public hearings. The first one is 2215. We're going to open this public hearing. Janine, would you please read 2215?
Ordinance number 2215 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Blind, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 137 North Vernon Avenue, Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of newly annexed property to single-family residence, RL, low-density district, zoning code of the city of Newark, Ohio.
Planning Commission has recommended passage and approval of this. So now's your chance. Does anyone like to speak for or against this first public hearing? Anyone for or anyone against? One more time. Anyone for or against? Raise your hand. I'll have you come up. Okay, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Janine, let's read it once more, and then that'll be the second reading, and we'll vote.
Ordinance number 22-15 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Blind, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 137 North Vernon Avenue, City of Licking County, Ohio, from that of newly annexed property to single-family residence, RL, low-density district, zoning code of the city of North, Ohio.
We've heard the second reading of 22-15. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
make a motion to adopt 22-15.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath. Second by Ms. Blind. Is there any discussion on 22-15?
Mr. President.
Mr. Rath.
This has been approved and recommended by the planning commission. I don't see any opposition to this. I would recommend, I plan to support this as everybody else would as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. I failed to mention this, but since the planning commission did recommend it, it will take 7 votes to vote it down. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hollinger? Mr. Hauser? Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
22-15 passes 9-0. Next, we have one other public hearing. We're going to open the public hearing, 22-16. Janine, would you please read that for us?
Ordinance number 22-16 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Blind. An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 91 to 93 Clinton Street, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of TFR two-family residence district to MFR multifamily residence district, zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
And once again, the planning commission has recommended passage of this. Does anyone like to speak for or against? Once again, anyone for or against? Now's the time. Anyone for or against? We're going to go ahead and close this public hearing. Janine, please read it again and then we'll vote.
Ordinance number 22-16 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, Mr. Harris, and Ms. Blind. An ordinance changing the zoning classification of certain real property generally described as 91 to 93 Clinton Street, City of Newark, Licking County, Ohio, from that of TFR two-family residence district to MFR multifamily residence zoning code of the City of Newark, Ohio.
You've heard the second reading of 22-16. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
make a motion to adopt 22-16.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Rath,
Second.
second by Ms. Blond. Is there any discussion on 22-16?
Mr. President.
Mr. Rath.
Again, this is approved by the planning commission, seeing no opposition. Planning to support it, but urge everybody else to do it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Anyone else? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
yes,
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Pottinger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes. 22-16 passes 9-0. Now, next on the agenda is comments from citizens. There's two locations for comments from citizens. One is now and one is after the legislation. This is not a debate with council or a question and answer period. This is just your chance to be heard. If you'd like to speak during this section, please raise your hand and we will call you up. Nancy, you can head on up. Anyone else like to speak this first section? Anyone else besides Kim Blaney like to speak this first section? Okay, go right ahead. Nancy, give us your name and address for the record.
Nancy Whalen, 7441 Stewart Road, Newark, Ohio. Good evening, Mayor, Law Director, and Council. I'm here on behalf of the Newark Homeless Outreach, just to kind of give you all an update on the activity and what we've been involved in the last several months. You might know, but I'm still gonna hit the highlights. On July 16th, we had a health fair down at the outreach. We partnered with 3 substance use disorders providers, which were LAP, CRN Healthcare, and Lower Lights. We also, in attendance, was the Family Health Service, who administered 16 HIV tests, and I'm happy to say we had no positives, so that's really great. The health department has come down again, and they administered 8 vaccines, a combination of COVID and Hep A. Central Outreach also administered 6 hepatitis C tests. Of those hepatitis C tests, 4 were negative, 2 were positive, and 1 person signed up for treatment through the Central Outreach. They can give folks treatment. And I believe it's free, that they don't have to pay for that. So that was a highly successful, in our opinion, health fair. That's the second one that we've done. To my knowledge, we're the only street outreach bringing these type of services to folks in need. And it's just not the unsheltered and houseless. Anybody could stop by for these vaccines and these tests. And we didn't keep track of, are you on the street? Are you just passing by? Because we don't discriminate. And so we really enjoy doing those, and we will be doing them again in the future. We also are a member of the Warming Center Task Force. Linda Mossholder and myself are on the board. We had a very successful warming center this last year. We were open 15 nights, which, as somebody who was helping to coordinate volunteers, that's a lot of folks. We had 9 at Trinity Lutheran nights and 5 at the Disciple Factory, which is ran by Pastor Critter. Unfortunately, that building is being sold. And as of right now, this coming winter, we only have Trinity Lutheran on the books. If you know of a church that is willing to open up, please contact myself, Linda, Sean Grady, anybody on the Warming Center Task Force, because we are in desperate need of sites. And volunteers. We'll be gearing up the 1st of October. We meet monthly now, but we're gonna really start hitting it hard the 1st of October, getting volunteers, and hopefully we can find some more locations. The Newark Homeless Outreach, I'm happy and proud to say, was also part of the mobile grocery veggie bus pilot program. I don't know if you all have heard of that. We, Dee Dill from United Way kind of spearheaded this, and we had 4 different locations throughout the county. We had one in Utica, we had one in Licking Valley, we had one in Newark at the YMCA, and the last one was a few weeks ago at the Pataskala YMCA. We got a grant through, Veggie Bus. We got a grant through, I can't remember who the grant was, but we partnered with the group out of Columbus. They brought fresh fruits and vegetables and canned goods to the sites, and they were at a reduced cost to folks. And the feedback we're getting was really, really good. The folks up in Utica, we set up at that senior living space that's next to the high school, and over 50 to 60% of their clients came and shopped and just were amazed at how much they get for a low cost. It's much needed, as we know, fruits and vegetables. We take in stuff at the outreach. We have a gentleman that right now goes up to Brand Stools and buys a peck of peaches each week, and he brings them, and that's a real treat. If you haven't had Brand Stool peaches, I would recommend going up there. Lastly, we're really proud, the Newark Homeless Outreach building has solar panels. If you've driven by 184 East Main Street, we had an anonymous donor who believes in solar, foot the bill to put in electricity and solar panels. We have 6 solar panels, which is the smallest Kennard's LLC has ever put in. I myself have solar. I got it last year. I have not had an electric bill since March. I'm pro solar. So I was really happy that we had an anonymous donor do that. So that will lower our costs, being a very small nonprofit. I think that's it. If you have any questions, just let one of us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just you start speaking, right?
Well, give me your name and address.
Okay, I'm Ken Blaney. I live at 1407 Misty Glen in Newark, Ohio. I thought I just, since I have this chance to speak, there's an election tomorrow, and I thought the election had something to do with transgender high school students, and so I followed that. And I spoke to Mark Fisher, who was on this council before, and I talked to, I went up to the client and talked to them. If you noticed in the ads yesterday, they didn't mention the girls' sports or bathroom at all. So sometimes in life you see something you think is wrong and you speak up against it, and maybe or maybe not I made a difference. And many of you know I own most of Rice Street, if not all of it. We tore down half a dozen houses, and we'll probably tear down a couple more. I guess there might be some developer interested in it, but I don't think they're going to buy our property at land bank prices. I think that's what they would like. So what I get to know a lot of the tenants, and when they said next time you speak, at least start with a little joke. At least come down here and say that you like to change the name of the street, you know, my street. Or we were talking about the tours at Hoover Dam, and we had Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts there one time. And I don't know how many times the tour guide said, my dam entrance or my dam spillway. So they said, call it my dam street. Anyway, I thought at least throw some humor at you. The real reason I'm here to speak to you is that the stress of this property maintenance is unbearable in my life. And a few years ago, 2 years ago, I fell because I was so stressed. I'm in for an MRI. I might need surgery. You know, the whole aspect of this has been, sorry, I'm getting emotional, has just been off the scale. Okay. So now I have a new violation, and it says if I don't correct it, it will be $500 a day. My point of speaking today is that I'm not sure a city council should be or could be putting tax liens on people's property. The city of Columbus, if I'm familiar with it, it goes through a judicial process. So I think this city has skipped the judicial. There's three branches of the government, and there's the legislation, there's the executive, and at least give a person the opportunity to go through the court system. The idea that in a month or two, I could have enough tax liens against my property that you can vote to post tax lien and take my property away is extremely stressful in my life, and I think it's rather unfair. I'm going to make a little bit of a joke, and if you follow the hearings in Washington, sometimes the Attorney General used the word, I won't even say it, they said BS about it. So what somebody did, they spray painted a word that starts with the F, and the second word starts with U. So yes, it'll probably be removed in the next couple of days unless I file, because I don't think $500 a day is appropriate, even to scare someone, or it's just wrong. And I think I should, if I don't speak about it, I don't know how many properties you've taken away from people, at least 100. And you might feel this is right, but I feel it's intimidation and threatening, and that's just my opinion. And it's affected my health. So as I limp out of here, let it know that I'm a human being, and this situation has affected me in a negative way. So thank you very much. And hopefully I was polite and respectful. Aaron saw me fall out there a couple of years ago. He's a security out here. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Was there anyone else for this section? I don't believe so. Again, there's one more after the legislation. Okay, we'll move on. There are no ordinances on the first reading. Are there no ordinances on the second reading or on the first reading? We go to resolutions on the second reading, 22-60.
Resolution number 22-60 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Mr. Blind, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Harris, Mr. Hauser, and Mr. Rath. A resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the United States Bureau of Justice Assistance for fiscal year 2022 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant funding.
You've heard the second reading of 22-60. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Marmy.
make a motion to adopt resolution 22-60.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmy. Second by Mr. Labutus. Is there any discussion on 22-60? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
22-60 passes 9-0. Next, we go on to 22-62.
Resolution number 22-62 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Ms. Blind, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Harris, Mr. Hauser, and Mr. Rath. Resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 22-62. What is your wish?
Mr. Mark, make a motion to adopt resolution 22-62.
Motion by Mr. Marmy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hauser. Is there any discussion on 22-62? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
22-62 passes 9-0.
Did you hear that one?
I heard that. Even though we heard it. Next, we go on to 22-63.
Resolution number 22-63 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, Mr. Marmy, Ms. Blind, Mr. Labutus, Mr. Harris, and Mr. Ryan. A resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to negotiate and enter into contract without competitive bidding for the purchase and installation of a pool liner for the Hollander Pool.
You've heard the second reading of 22-63. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
make a motion to adopt 22-63.
Motion by Mr. Rath.
Second.
By Mr. Harris. I'll get you next time. Is there any discussion on 22-63? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
22-63 passes 9-0. Finally, we'll go on to resolutions on the first reading, 22-67.
Resolution number 22-67 expedite by Mr. Marmy, Ms. Blind, Mr. Barker, Mr. Rath, and Mr. Harris. A resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
22-6, Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule on resolution 22-67.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Marmy, second by Mr. Barker. Mr. Marmy.
Yes, we need to expedite this in order to get the funds in order to do these repairs. So I ask everybody to support that.
Thank you, Mr. Marmy. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion to adopt resolution 22-67.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Marmy. Second by Mr. Barker. Is there any other discussion on 22-67? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
22-67 passes 9-0. Next on the first reading, we have 22-68.
Resolution number 22-68 by Mr. Marmy, Mr. Barker, Mr. Rath, and Mr. Harris, a resolution appropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
22-68 will be held for 2 weeks until August 15th, our next meeting. And finally, tonight, we have 22-69.
Resolution number 22-69 by Mr. Rath, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Marmy, a resolution authorizing the Lee County Commissioners to act as the purchasing agent and governmental aggregator for the electric power aggregation program for the city of Newark, Licking County, Ohio.
22-69,
Mr. President,
Mr. Rath.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Motion to waive the 2-day reading rule by Mr. Rath. Second by Mr. Barker. Mr. Rath.
Yeah, we have to waive this tonight in order to get the participation agreement to the county commissioner's office on time to get us actually on the ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Janine, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind? Yes. Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Rath.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt 22-69.
Motion adopted by Mr. Rath, second by Ms. Blind. Is there any other discussion on 22-69? Seeing none, Janine, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Marmy?
Yes.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Barker?
Yes.
Ms. Blind?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hattiger? Mr. Hauser?
Yes.
Mr. Labutus?
Yes.
Mr. Lang?
22-69 passes 9-0. And that will conclude the legislation for this evening. Thank you. Next, we have our second opportunity for comments from citizens. Again, this is not a debate with council. This is your opportunity to be heard. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. I'll call you up in some kind of order. Anyone like to speak this second time? Linda?
Linda Mosfelder, 224 Green Meadow Drive in Newark. First of all, I would just like to thank people who came out to the Southport Civic Association picnic on Saturday. It was our 10th year. We had representatives from property maintenance. We had representatives from the police department and representatives from the fire department. The fire department brought out the big ladder truck, which was a huge hit with the kids. They all just had to run and see it. And they were very good with the kids. They actually showed them all the insides of this, they didn't let them go up in the ladder, but they did a lot, which was good. Because I'm thinking, please don't let them do that. But they did a really nice job. And we also had councilperson Ms. Blind and Mr. Hauser there. It was an opportunity for Southport Civic Association residents to ask questions and get some answers by talking directly to the people involved. So it was a very successful event. The next thing I'd like to discuss is, as you're probably aware, the first round of the opioid settlement funds has been distributed. It has been distributed both to the county and I believe the city has also received it. I've also talked to the county commissioners, Mr. Bob, who heads up the county team of people who are making the decision, has agreed the importance of having some listening sessions to get some input on how this money should be spent. And that would include people who are currently impacted opioids. They may be still using and really do not know what to do or don't have access to funds for treatment, and the people who have shared experience. And these are people who have lost their loved ones or have been involved in treatment. But their voices need to be heard because this is the people who actually died for this money. And to exclude them from talks about how the settlement money should be, spent is really a slap in their faces. So I would encourage, when it comes time to make some decisions on how that money should be spent in the city of Newark, that at least we have some input from people who have some experience with opioids. The opioid situation is still increasing. I believe somebody else will be speaking to the number of overdoses this year, but they're not going away. And this is an opportunity to have money that can save lives. And I'm sure that's something you all agree needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Evening, Patricia Perry, 280. I'm sorry, it is black and white. I didn't have any coloring when I got home today, but I just wanted to make reference to a couple of things in there. Last year, Licking County, according to the ODH epidemiologist, had 63 overdose deaths here in Licking County. This is quite a jump from the year before at 47. So there is a team called the Strike Force team out of Governor DeWine's office. And I had a chance to sit in on that meeting. And they talked about what was needed here, because Licking County is in the top 22 of the 88 counties of overdose rates increase. And they talked about things to curb the epidemic and the overdose rates. Some of the things that was talked about was some of the counties have funding for, they put naloxone, like a machine in the jail. So when people walk out of the jail, they have automatic, naloxone there. We also put the first naloxone box in Licking County or Newark is now on our property where people can go get naloxone, which is the overdose reversal drug, at any time, 24 hours a day. The box is monitored as well as the volunteers. Several of us have access. We go down. Some of us are there 2 to 3 times a day to make sure there is naloxone in there. So that's huge. I seen there was an overdose recently on Buena Vista, and it's important that we get all of this information into the people's hands because a lot of people don't want to. The stigma is so hard here in Licking County. Many people will not come and go to the health department or come to us personally because they don't want their address known. They don't want their name known. So this way they can go, they can get what they need and walk away. I also want to talk about that I recently submitted a proclamation to the mayor. We would like to see, and I can read it, Dear Mayor Jeff Hall, on June 21st, June of 2021, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed Ohio Senate Bill 30, officially recognizing August 31st of each year as Ohio Overdose Awareness Day. The law went into effect September 7th, 2021. Be it enacted by the General Assembly of the State of Ohio, Section 1, that's Section 5.2269 of the revised code has been amended to read as follows. Section 5.22969, a month of May designated as Substance Abuse Awareness and Education Month. The first Friday of May is designated as Prescription Drug Abuse Awareness and Education Day. The 31st, and Section B, the 31st day of August is designated as Ohio Overdose Awareness Day to raise public awareness to the epidemic and to remember the lives lost to the epidemic. On the 31st day of August, in recognition of Ohio Overdose Awareness Day, a state flag displayed at a state building or public institution shall be flown at half-staff from sunrise to sunset. The new law was sponsored by the Ohio Senate Health Committee and the Ohio House Behavioral Health and Recovery Supports Committee. It was also co-sponsored by Licking County State Senator Jay Hottinger. We are grateful for Governor DeWine and Senator Hottinger's support because overdose awareness is critically important here in Licking County. The most recent annual statistics in the Licking County Health Department's August 2021 overdose fatality report shows that Licking County suffered a 30.6% increase in overdose deaths. Fentanyl deaths have increased by 84.2% in Licking County. To help raise awareness, overdose awareness in Licking County, we seek your help, Mayor. Specifically, we ask you to provide a proclamation identifying August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day. The proclamation would be an important symbol for hope to our community and would demonstrate the compassion we value here in Licking County. The proclamation would also parallel with Governor DeWine's and Senator Hottinger's support for the Ohio Senate Bill 30. We thank you for your consideration. Myself, as Ohio County Coordinator, co-founder of Newark Homeless Outreach, Linda Mossholder, who is also the board member of Ohio Can. The last thing was, in May, we requested that house be lit in purple for Overdose Day, August 31st. It was denied, surprisingly. Anyway, so we are like one of the only counties, 88 counties, that will not light a structure for overdose awareness on August 31st. So that I see is kind of sad. I mean, 1 out of 88 counties. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. That is certainly something we don't want to be leading the statistics in.
No, but we do.
Any city officials this evening? Assistant Law Director Clickinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I promised Mr. Harris that I would give a rousing speech.
Well, that would be great.
But I would like to thank council and Mayor Hall and Director Rhodes for their assistance with getting past the law director's technology upgrade. I know my computer personally is from when I started 9 years ago, so it's long overdue. And that'll pass.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
Yes, this morning we had sworn in 3 new police officers, and officers Amato, Lafferty, and Petticourt. I want to congratulate all of them and welcome aboard and thank them for being the police officers. I think we probably have one in the waiting too, another one coming. That those were all 3 laterals. They've been police officers other places, but they're very proud and honored to be here in Newark. And so it was a good event, and very proud of the family there. And I think they'll do great things within our departments that way. This past Friday was pretty busy downtown, and Shirley Travis Tritt, I think, sold the house at the Midland. The final Friday was going on, and I think that worked out wonderful around the square. The weather was cooperative, and it's probably one of the biggest days the farmers market's had since its inception 6 years ago, and done very well. And then finally remind everyone, we do have what we've tagged as Summerfest. Last year it was Celebrate Newark, but it will be this Friday from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. It's going to kind of launch with our Hometown Heroes, a veterans program, and have a couple groups that'll be on the north side of the square. And all the businesses are pretty excited about that. There'll be some local food trucks and a lot of things going on that way. So I encourage people to come and enjoy it. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Marmy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I need to call a finance committee meeting for August the 15th. And with that, I will pass.
Mr. Marmy, Mr. Rapp.
Thank you. First off, I want to remind everybody to vote tomorrow. That's very important. With others who can't go any way around, so I won't call a service committee meeting for the 15th. Linda and Patricia, I want to thank you personally for what you guys are doing. We do appreciate that, and encourage you to keep up the good fight. And remember to vote tomorrow. Was that a pass?
Thank you, Mr. Rapp. Mr. Ron.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have much tonight. I just want to thank council and David Rhodes and the mayor for 2263, which is the progression of the Hollander Pool. So excited to get that up running next year, and that'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one thing, I did want to announce that the Light the Night Cruise-In will be returning to downtown Newark on September 10th. This is the event that is normally spearheaded by Jim Matheny and the Newark Riders. We lost Jim He actually passed away the day of the cruise-in last year, and his son and family have decided to keep that tradition going in conjunction with the Courthouse Lighting Committee. And so that will be September 10th downtown. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Ms. Blind?
And thank you, Mr. President. Very excited about Light Night. Below it. I'd like to thank Deputy Chief Bridget. He was very instrumental in working some things out for a citizen this weekend. It was, I really appreciate his assistance. And Muhammad Khan, we don't talk about him a whole lot, but he is a great fellow at the health department, also very helpful with some citizen issues. And Joe Paul in his office, of course, always on task, doing great things. And Miss Mossholder, right on, that picnic was a ball. It was a great time just to see those kids. They were having a ball with the fire department and the NPD. It was so great to see them come out. And I'd also like to thank Little Texas Ministries and South Newark Camp. We gave out backpacks later that day. It was like an all-day picnic down there. And so it was really great to be able to help some folks out that normally wouldn't get assistance. And I'd like to thank those who have been donating flowers for 4th Street. And it's almost finished. That addition will be finished, and we'll start on 5th Street next. So get ready. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Blind. Mr. Harris?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank our city employees, our parks guys and street guys when that storm came through. We have to go on that Saturday. A lot of trees were down, and they got out there and did a great job of clearing the trees and opening up streets. And it's good to hear that we got 3 new police officers, so that's encouraging for us. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Hauser?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to second what Mr. Ratson, very important that we got to do that. I just want to thank Director Rhodes and Joe Paul for being nice and property maintenance and cleanup related items for me. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Lutz?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to remind everyone to vote tomorrow, and I want to thank Director Rhodes for a couple of issues he's been able to move with recently. With that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mr. Lutz. And Mr. Lyon?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to thank Joe Paul, George Carter, Dave, Brian, and the engineering team for handling a couple different issues over Village Drive and off of Londondale. Got some great issues there. And Nancy and Tricia and Linda, thank you for all the work you guys continue to do for keeping us updated. I appreciate it. I did want to talk about the flock safety that we brought to our attention a few weeks ago. I sat down with Director Moore this past week to share some of my thoughts and some of my privacy concerns on how we might use that system in Newark. And our grant application is pending right now, so it's the right time for us to talk about using the system in the city. First, I'd say I'd like to commend Chief McKee for being proactive and bringing forward a way to improve how we police. I think that's great that he brought it forward. And for my research, it's certainly something that is a powerful tool to be utilized to improve solve rates and help our police work more efficiently. Chief's mission, obviously, is to look for the best ways to police. So again, thank you, Chief. But our mission on council is a bit broader. As stewards of the public trust, it's incumbent upon us to ensure that surveillance tools like these are used responsibly. So that means the council needs to ensure that these tools are used in a way that's transparent, tailored to minimize the information that's collected and stored regarding movement of law-abiding citizens, and that we maintain safeguards so that we ensure we avoid abuse. First, more diligence is going to be needed on Flock in general. It's a well-funded, private equity-backed company. They've raised more than $300 million over the last 7 months. And their CEO has said that they plan to expand beyond license plate readers. They're certainly focused on license plate readers now, but it's not hard to see how the pressure from those investors could lead them to pivot from cameras that read vehicles features to programming cameras that read facial features. So we just need to ensure that we don't give up all kind of control on this type of surveillance in our community and open the door for any future uses that Flock may market to our police force. Certainly have the utmost faith in our current leadership, but someday we may have a different mayor, different safety director, different police. So we have to proceed with caution and keep the long term in mind. So with that in mind, I sent initial policy considerations to our law director, to our safety director, Chief McKee, and we're going to be having discussions over the next few weeks to start drafting a policy for appropriate use. Be happy to include anyone from council who wants to participate, so please just let me know if you're interested. I think we also need legislation to ensure that council retains control over where the cameras are placed, to ensure we can maintain proper policies, and that appropriate usage reporting is provided back to council and made available to the public, so we ensure transparency. Anybody else on council? So, at the end of the day, I think we just need to make sure that we stay ahead of this, and we put in place a structure that allows the police department to use this powerful tool to work more effectively, but use it in a responsible manner. Anytime we're gathering information about private citizens, we just need to ensure it's done in a careful and controlled manner that prevents abuse. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. And I'll just add my thanks to all of you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your opinion with us. It's always welcome. Our next meeting is going to be August 15th, 5:45 for committees, 7 o'clock for council. So motion is motion by Mr. Booth, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say